Of the clock and we will get started. I am going to be standing occasionally today. I have a slip disc in my back and it is rather painful to sit. So I will try and sit as much as possible, but occasionally I'm going to have to stand. So please bear with me if you can. All right. As we get started this morning, we've done the reading in the mail this morning and done the signatures. We will do introductions. My name's Chuck Fuller. This is June 22nd, Effingham Board of Selectmen's meeting. Lenny Espy is to my right and Tom Hart is to my left. When we get to the public speaking section this morning, we will have people address the chair and the chair only. And you'll have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to make your statement and or ask your question. And we're only going to do it once. So hopefully you're prepared with your questions and your statements. Please stand if you would and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see. We have signature folders. We had selectmen's meetings minutes from June 15th, 2021. I want to make an edit, and I've made the edits on the document. The word contract should read supporting guideline or guideline, depending on how it's worded in that particular sentence. Make a motion to accept the amended meeting minutes from June 15, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor? Fuller, aye.
Aye.
Selectmen's work session meeting minutes for June 15th. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Selectmen's non-public minutes for June 15th, which were sealed minutes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
JP Pest Control Services. So we have I think we mentioned a week or so ago, a bad tick infestation at the transfer station around the white goods containment center. And originally JP Pest Services, which is a town pest control company, said that they were completed for their tick spraying for the year. They came back to us and said, whoops, there's been such a demand because of ticks. We're willing to do it again. So we approved it last week. I electronically signed it the other day. So hopefully they'll get out there and spray around there for the ticks. Going forward, we will also be taking a look at using tick tubes around the property and around the areas where the folks are working. For those that aren't familiar with tick tubes, they're basically a tube full of cotton balls treated with one of the tick repellents. And the mice, the chipmunks, take it back to their nest and basically nest in it. And as a result of that, they don't get ticks. And ticks on mice and chipmunks are where the whole cycle starts. So if we can minimize that, it'll work. It takes a time to do it. It's not overnight. We had a construction change order for the old window restorers for the town hall project. It's just a formal document of their proposal for the storm windows. The amount's like $22,000 and change. They're already an accepted contractor doing the renovation of the 5 historic windows on the first floor. They already have a contract with us that runs through December of 2022. So it was an addendum change order to the contract. And we had one yield tax timber cut. The manifest this week. Fortunately, we had another light week. We don't have any school payments. I'll make a motion to approve the manifest in the amount of $33,387.88. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Fuller, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, under announcements, the town clerk tax collector's office will be closed the week of July 4th. So that week beginning the 5th all the way through, they will be closed. Transfer station will be closed on the July 4th holiday, which is a Sunday. And the Board of Selectmen's meeting, we talked about changing from Tuesday to Wednesday, so it'll go to Wednesday, July 7th. Anything else in announcements that you have? Okay. Review of the mail. We actually have our copy of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services approval permit for the 3 additional 24-inch culverts that need to be put in on Pine River Road to complete that entire repair project. This gives us a permanent solution, so we don't have to rip it up in 3 years and put in a concrete box culvert. The work on that culvert is slated to start July 6th, and an ad will be going in the paper. It'll be sent up today, so it'll be going out. It'll be posted on the website. While the work is going on, they're going to try and keep it to 1 lane open so we can put people through there. But there will be a few periods of time while they're connecting culverts where it could be closed down for 2 to 3 hours at a time. So just be mindful when you're driving that particular road. It'll start on the 6th and will take approximately 5 to 6 days to get it done. Because we're starting on a Tuesday, not a Monday because of the holiday, there's a good chance it may finish up the following Monday or Tuesday. Administrator comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm have an IT hat on. I've been working with getting the Spectrum line out of the police station and potentially getting new quotes for servers, understanding the security a little better on our computer systems. And I'm changing passwords on SAM, changing passwords on the governor's Gopher site. So I've been dealing a lot with getting access to where I need to be able to do my job. Let's see where.
And Audrey, just while you're still on that subject, just so people are aware, the town offices are segregated part of the server. The police department is a totally segregated part of the server, and that's a requirement under federal law. So it takes a little bit more to manage the server management because of those 2 scenarios.
Hopefully we can get rid of Spectrum, get rid of that $100 a month police connection fee. Let's see. I'm learning how to do the USDA payment form for Snow Road. We have enough expenses in now that I can start putting in reimbursement for some of our expenditures. Let's see. I worked with DES last week, and we're getting the new resident packet updated.
Good.
That's it.
When did you want to ask them?
Do you know what happened here from the end of the last year, the IRS, why did it get dinged? Like, nobody knows.
No, but I want to pay it so we don't get any more penalties.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do some more homework.
Oh, okay.
But I have a feeling that they were just underpaid a few payments, and most of that is penalties and interest.
Yeah, I see that.
$500.
Yeah, I see that.
So
is that related to Social Security?
it's the 941 from December 2020.
All right. Selectmen's comments, Mr. Hart.
Yeah, I want to follow up on Champion Hill. At the concerned citizen, we received an email in the office. The water going around the catch basin down there. There's been some holes that actually sunk through now, the blacktop on the side where it's almost like a culvert effect there. Going around, it's washing away a lot of the soil there around that and the blacktop. So I called Evans Brothers. I go by and looked at the situation. He was going up to take a look at it. I haven't heard back from him what we can do about it at this point. Also, got some concerns about the legal line. The 6.3, the legal line 4153, about 60% over. Should be around 40%. I guess my question is, are we making sure that the board's realizing that they can use the NHMA attorneys, which are free, and if they don't get an answer there, then go on to the town attorney or whatever. But otherwise, this thing's could go sideways. This legal.
I've been using NHMA on everything.
Yeah, so I think we just get that word out there, and I know the budget committee chairman has had a little bit of an issue with this too.
Kim,
I started the last bill, maybe even the one before, to send it to the departments who are using it or the committees so that they would see
Okay,
what they're spending.
Okay.
all right.
Can you pull together, probably just print a year-to-date document that shows what we've got going on when we paid it? And is there a way we can get, maybe for the next work session, let's dive into some of those bills a little further to just see if we can understand what's going on and what the need is.
And I've voted.
Oh, second, okay, Lenny?
Last night, we attended graduation. I didn't see in the minutes though, where we discussed about who was going to talk.
You and I had that discussion here in the meeting, in the work session.
No, I don't remember it, but anyway, we got.
You did a phenomenal job.
I could have done better with a few minutes leeway, advanced warning, but we get through it. It was fun. Kids enjoyed it. Good for them. It's been a tough year for everybody. The roadside mowing, I haven't caught up with that guy. I think he is just a contractor for the state, but I haven't caught up with Will Shepherd or the guy on the machine, so I'll keep trying. The cemetery road grading. Did you go up and look at it?
I didn't get a chance to go up there.
They put a load or two up the top, but the corner and the hill when you're going up, it's real rough. They should have done something there, but
Yeah, I didn't think he brought the grader up there.
no, they
didn't
didn't.
smooth it.
You know, it need that. It's growing in. I mean, grass growing. Thank God people drive, so it keeps the grass down. So the rest of it's all growing in. So
All right, so you want to go
we should.
bring some more in? Or?
Yeah, I think it should have some.
Couple loads and then grade it off.
Yeah, I mean, they did all right with just smoothing out with the backhoe, but there's so many pine needles and everything else. I don't know what you'd do with it. You'd have to haul out 4 loads and haul in 6, I think, to clean up the mess. But yeah, I think we should address it.
I'll call him too.
Yeah, and while we're on the cemetery, I did get a hold of that Mr. Adams that wants to swap his lots.
Yeah.
He was told when he bought the lot in 2018, that he wanted to buy in the new section, but it wasn't ready. So they told him that he could swap them. But now they're telling him that you'd have to pay more money. He just wants to swap. Doesn't want to sell them back and buy new. He just wants to swap.
And we obviously have the space.
Yes, we have the space now in the new, I mean, like you said, when I bought them in 2018, the new section wasn't ready, and I don't think it was. I don't think we got that going until, was it 2019? That when we? Yeah, okay. But I says, well, let me see what the other two say. I said, I don't have a problem. You just want to swap. I can't see making him spend more money if all he wants to do is swap.
If we had real tight space, I'd say you have to pay, but
Yeah,
I'm in agreement. For this one scenario, we can let him swap.
yeah.
You good with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so I told him I'd let him know, and he'd meet up with me and pick out where he wants to be. So. And the other lady, she's gonna call me when she's coming back from Massachusetts tomorrow, so she's gonna get hold of me, so she's gonna take her lots up.
We had a request of where the cemetery was, and is that road officially Cemetery Road?
That's what everybody calls it.
I don't think there's an official road name,
No.
but that's, as Lenny said, it's locally, that's what it's known as.
Yeah, so we told them there was a sign off the Hobbs Road. Right?
I mean, we could put a road sign at the end of it. It says
Isn't there some, I thought that Woodlawn Cemetery was something on a tree there.
just a white wooden sign says cemetery.
Okay. We can modify the sign, town cemetery or something like that.
Do we want to order cemetery road sign or
How do you name the road officially?
cemetery road?
More than that. Yeah, no, it's gotta go a lot more than that.
You have to go through each
But if we at least advertise
Yeah.
where the cemetery is, it's off Hobbs Road. Look for the sign on the, at the
Is there a
beginning of.
gazebo near there? Because she said she turned right near a gazebo or something.
Yeah, on Lord's Hill, 153.
So she's on the right track.
That's where Hobbs
She's on the
Road,
right track. Okay.
Hobbs Road is near there.
But to answer your question, why don't we, what do you want on it for a name? You want Town of Effingham, Woodlawn Cemetery, or
There's Woodland Cemetery.
Woodland Cemetery? Okay. All right. See if we can get something that's more permanent than the wooden one and brighter. Okay.
And the rock is, Evans hasn't got the rock out of the river. The fire station.
No,
Randy. I'd like to get going on that hydrant if they could.
all right.
And you got an update on Snow Road Bridge, why they weren't working?
Yep.
Okay. That's all I got for right now.
Okay. So one of the things I started doing some research on back in the spring and also followed up on after we changed the select board was looking into a pre-buy program for LP gas for the 4 buildings. The rates for Eastern came through yesterday, and based on the research I did for all of last year, we're getting probably a better rate for each of the 4, or each of the 3 out of 4. This building would probably end up with a slightly better rate, but because of what we're getting for rates on the other side, it ends up being less money just staying with the AmeriGas rack rate. So I'm going to give that one up unless anybody wants me to pursue it further. Okay. This morning we signed a Moose Plate grant support letter from the town office. Grace Fuller, Sue Regal, and Jen Van Coor have been working over the last several weeks to put together another $10,000 request for Moose Plate grant. They're submitting that within the next week or so. And the target for that money, should it come in, would be to help restore the 3 sets of double doors in the first floor of the building. So the main entry door from the front, that double door, the inside foyer double doors, and then the double doors off the parking lot. Right now, you can pretty much year round see light around the edges of them, and they're in tough shape. In some cases, the panels are cracked and it needs to be restored. If we get it, we'll try and put that into the phase 1 of the project. Today, after the meeting, the select board is going to watch a replay of a tape from a presentation a few weeks back on the federal and state ARPA grants. This was the legislation signed where the money was coming down to the states and coming down to the town. Our town is actually slated to get a little north of $154,000 split over 2 years. The key thing is it's a very narrow definition around COVID and COVID related support that we can use the money for. So after we're listening to this today, we'll be having a work session to kind of define what would be the areas that we might qualify for, so we can begin to get that information to Audrey so that she can actually submit it to get the check. Last week, we talked here about transfer station and the woody vine that's off the back end of the cap down in the wetland area from near South River. I did do some follow-up on that because I was concerned about toxic sprays in the area. The spray we've purchased has a warning, an environmental hazardous warning right on it that says do not spray where it could run off into a wetland. So we'll talk about it shortly. I've made a recommendation that we actually do some follow-up with the state DOT as well as environmental services. Also see if we can obtain any names of companies that do remediation in this area. and find out what it would cost to have them spray that vine under a contract, which would shift the liability from the town to that vendor in the event there was a future DES problem. Personally, I'm not willing to take on screwing up that wetland in that area because there's enough complaints down there already. The ZBA is having a variance meeting on June 29th at 7 p.m. I encourage you all to join in if you can. The Boyles Market folks, around the new gas tanks they've installed, they chose ahead of getting permission to put those tanks in to do the install. And they were stopped before they put the concrete cap on them. And this is a request at their behalf to get approval to continue with those tanks. June 29, 7 p.m. here. I'm going to be here because I fully expect it's going to be a good discussion. We received a thank you last week addressed to the Effingham selectmen, and I'm going to read it. On behalf of my brothers and sister and myself, we wish to thank you for presenting our mother, Priscilla Parsons, with the Boston Post cane. It means a lot to her as her roots in this town are very deep. She remembers at least one family member that received the cane years ago. Thank you, Janet Bartowitz, Beverly Kimball, Alan Parsons, David Parsons. So we did have that done, and I believe, did we put the picture up on our website? I've seen it somewhere. I just couldn't remember where I saw it.
Yeah, beautiful Effingham group on Facebook. I remember
Perfect.
seeing it.
Okay, that's
I
right.
she's been looking for it in the paper, and I told her daughter yesterday that she had an emergency the day after and went to the hospital. So her health is stable now, so we'll go ahead and put it in the paper.
Yeah, I was concerned we might have set her off to send her to the hospital. So it's like, no, it was
No, it was a tick bite.
it was different related item. So
Tick bite and heat or something like that. I remember Paul mentioning it.
combination. Yep. As I mentioned earlier, Pine River Road culvert, the installs. So part of the emergency repair last year allowed us to put in a culvert, a large culvert, but that did not solve the entire permanent solution. And we were required to come up with a permanent solution. The negotiation back and forth between Mike Holland, the engineers, and DES got us in a position where they approved us installing 3 24-inch culverts, and it's a specific location they're going to have to do it, that are considered to be, I think it's 200-year flood overflow culverts. So they're not actually going to be setting in the water. They're purely designed to take the worst of the worst kind of rainstorm. Once that's done, that particular bridge and culvert area will meet a long-term solution as far as DES is concerned. So if you want to think of it a different way, it's like we dodged a bullet on this one, because putting in a concrete box culvert would have been upwards of $350,000, $400,000. All in, we should be somewhere near 100 grand plus or minus on this permanent repair. So we can't play the emergency thing every time we want. We were warned of that right up front when we made the first call. We do have a second emergency permit that has just been issued for Bailey Road culvert. There is some caving in on the edges of that particular culvert. Some of the granite is falling into the water. We did just receive a 60-day permit to go in and make temporary repairs. Those are probably going to look like installing 2 slightly undersized culverts into the existing culverts to keep the waterway open, while we're in the position of finishing up the review with the CMA engineering firm and that project that started 2 years ago. So if you all remember, we basically, Mike got us a $75,000 grant, free money. It cost us upwards of $900 only for interest. And as part of that process, CMA engineers was hired. They were hired as a result of a state review process that we went through. They came out on top. They were hired. They have done the engineering studies. They've come back with a recommendation. And the next phase of this is basically Mike is actually starting to go after the state permit, upwards of $140,000 or thereabouts, which will cover a portion of that install. And once we know more information relative to pricing, because none of the bids have gone out yet. This is only engineering studies at this point. They're basically saying it'll be somewhere around a $380,000 project. We don't know that. It could be north or south of that, depending on what's going on in the construction world with pricing of materials. So before town meeting, we will have bids out. We will have a bidder. And when we go to town meeting, we're probably going to have to raise at least some of the price to put that bridge in next year. And it's totally unknown at this point what that price tag is going to be. So don't panic on it. It's not going to be 400 grand. We also, the library asbestos proposals we got in this morning. So for those that haven't been part of it, part of the architect and structural engineer review of the library building, Chris Garcia, acting on our behalf in a volunteer capacity as a construction project manager, worked with the architect and the structural engineer crawling around under the building. That is where we discovered the powder post beetle problem. And it is also where we discovered asbestos. So the asbestos is actually in the ceiling on the first floor. What was the children's room and is now the CD storage area with shelving. The proposal coming back, Chris got 4 of them. Enviro Vantage is the one he's recommending we go with for $4,800. We are not going to do that work until after the kids go back to school. So the library has asked us, the trustees have asked us, could we hold off on that until after all the summer programs for the kids are done and everybody's back in school, and then we'll do it. It'll involve closing the room off for 3 days because they have to do shower systems and everything else and their suits and the whole bit, getting rid of that. And there'll also be a requirement for air monitoring while the entire project is going on. So that price tag is about $2,800. So all in, we're looking upwards of about $7,500 to basically get the whole thing done. So 4,800, 2,800. Any questions from you guys on what's there?
No.
Okay. I think we're going to hold off on the actual approval of the contract until we get a little further into the summer. Because I'm going to want to basically have Chris reach out and see if any of the prices have changed based on all the prices that seem to be changing in the contract world at this point. You good with that?
Yeah, just things seem to be going up, not down.
Yeah, and this is basically going to be, it is what it is. We're not going to be able to fight against that. So, Audrey, can you put something, or Darlene, can you put something like latter part of July? We'll bring it up again for a vote. And I will ask Chris to ask these folks if their prices have changed between now and then. Prices are going up. We just got a revised quote for the heating system, which was originally going to be $53,000, and now it's up close to $75,000, $78,000. And it's all due to ductwork, metal ductwork and ductwork systems. Apparently the price of ductwork has gone up 40% in the last 30 or 40 days. And they will not get a lock on aluminum except within a 48-hour window. So we're going to be taking a look at that. It was supposed to be this year. We may not be able to get the new heating system in to that building this year. We may have to wait until next year. So more on that as we get it.
Chuck, shouldn't we be thinking about signing that contract for the price that it is today? No, we were holding to that. Everything's going up. Do we want to take that chance it's going to increase, or?
Thing is, that doesn't hold the price to contract, because if they can't do it for what, my husband's a contractor, I can tell you, if he's bid a project and then the materials go up, he'll come back to you and say, I can't do it now for what I bid it, because here's the new price. So it doesn't necessarily hold that price, because if they can't do it at that price anymore, they can't.
And I haven't read their actual contract because we only have proposals, but I know when we did the powder post beetle thing, the number we had was good for 30 days.
Okay.
And if we had gone beyond that, we were going to have to reprice
Jeff, can
it.
you speak a little louder?
When we did the JP pest control for the powder post beetles, that contract basically had a 30-day window. And once we went beyond the 30-day window, they could give us a new price. So, okay. There was also a request in the bag today. Randy Burbank would like to bring on a new firefighter by the name of Matthew, and I may butcher the name, it's Brabant. He's an EMT. He's passed all the background checks and everything else through the town. And I haven't got any issues with it. He's got the right credentials and he's been checked out. So, and he's willing to be part of the day shift coverage rotation. So I'll make a motion to approve Randy's choice of Matthew Brabant as a new firefighter.
Second.
All those in favor, so that
Right.
okay. Let's take a look. Let's see. Anything else in new business that you folks have? Okay. We actually have Mike Cahalan coming in at 10 o'clock for his monthly report. And do you have your numbers, sir? And Chief Joseph Duchesne is here with us this morning. We've asked each one of the department heads to basically kind of put on their calendar once a month to come in and give us an update on what's been going on within their particular area. Sorry about that. And Joe is basically slated to come in at the end of the first week, but there were some glitches with trying to get some of the information out of our system, which he's now solved.
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay, I'll let you explain it.
So what I'm gonna be doing is, like I said, monthly breakdown, just give you guys some numbers of what happened prior month. The system we have, I'm still trying to learn it. So right now I have just basic baseline numbers for you. I'm still trying to figure out how to go in and take, for instance, all the calls of service that we have and then break them down into, you know, this many assaults or this many. Right now it's just giving me a total. So just so you guys have an idea, and I'm gonna leave a copy of this for everybody if you like it. For the month of May, we handled 183 calls for service, which averages somewhere 5.5 calls a day. There were 2 arrests. We made 27 motor vehicle stops, and there were 2 motor vehicle accidents, one of which was a serious accident stemmed from a road rage incident, and there were felony charges filed out of that. That was on Pine River Road, so that you probably heard about it. So that's where we're at right now. Still, you know, I'm still fairly new here, trying to get the stats together and everything like that. I don't know. It's going to take me a few more months to see, you know, was that 183 average for this area or what? So I'm still trying to learn all that. But that's where we're at right now for the month of May. And then in July, I'll make things for you as well.
Chief, the numbers for May, do they include sheriff's department calls out here as well as state police calls out here? Perfect.
Yeah. That 183 is calls for service through the town of Effingham, whether they were officer initiated or they were dispatched to us by the dispatch center.
Okay.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yes. How many of those calls were directed to the treatment center?
I would have to go back through and count. I didn't count that, but I should find that out pretty easily, I think. Yep. Yep. So I can get back to you on that, or yep. No problem. Yeah. Any other questions? No? All right. I'll leave these up here on the table. If anybody wants them, you can grab them on the way out.
Thank you, Chief.
You're very well.
Just as a little bit more information around the reporting system that we have out there that the chief is learning how to operate. Because of the way we've set up the cruiser systems and the automated reporting that's there, we can actually tell where the cruisers have been. during shifts out there. So if somebody says, I never see the cruiser on Snow Road, they can actually pull it up and say, it was on Snow Road. It came on the road at this time. It left the road at that time. So if there was a call on it, there might be a larger time period in there. The other thing it'll allow us to do is break down by call type. So if it's a domestic disturbance or a theft or any of those types of breakdowns at a very high level, they'll be able to tell us what kind of activity we've got going on in town. You know, if it's drug related, whatever it might be, we'll have a capability to see some of that information. And because we're tied into the county and we're tied in with the same software system, we'll actually be able to pull the stats that the chief is calling over for now. We'll be able to pull those right off our system here. So that'll help us down the road in getting a better picture around the activity levels. We got public speaking coming up in a minute.
Not into the subject.
Save your question.
Okay.
Thank you. Chief's not going anywhere. He's gonna stay here.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's one of those things where basically we do have better reporting capability than we've had before. When Ian installed it, Ian was totally familiar after some training on how to set it up, but when he left, we lost that knowledge base. Now the chief and Sean are figuring out how to do that. So
hopefully next month I'll have a better breakdown as to the different types of calls and how they rather than installing them.
okay. Any other? Okay, guess we go to public comment. So your question, you can now ask.
It's not a question.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I've known.
Would you give your name and your address,
I'm
please?
sorry, Vicky Kirkwood, Green Mountain Road. I've noticed more of the police going on Green Mountain Road lately. Matter of fact, I was sitting outside and they stopped someone that was speeding last night. Which I hadn't seen blue lights on that road for a long time.
You'll see more of them.
But I have noticed that, and because of vacationers and, you know, holidays and whatever, that they're not driving as fast. They used to go like 80 miles an hour.
I'm thinking the locals are probably the ones that use that road on a regular basis, the ones that are doing the
Oh,
speeding.
it's people coming from Maine to do the cut over, so they don't have to go down 16
Yep.
and then go Elm Street, and it's bumper to bumper.
It's Massachusetts people and Connecticut people on Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, people that have bought property and stuff around, and the traffic trying to get out to 16 going Elm Street. Last weekend, I had to turn around. It was awful. And then there's the construction on 16 by Hannaford's that's holding things up. So it's been awful, but I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And the speed limit sign, the blinking sign, that gets posted around town in different areas.
Yeah, right now they're both charging in the office, but
Okay.
yeah, they get posted quite frequently.
So, because we actually have the issue up on Townhouse Road, right near the library, where people will go through there at 50, 60 miles an hour, and we're trying to address that and slow it down. So, okay, anybody else, public comment? Yes, Linda.
I'd like to say thank you, Lenny, for being at the cemetery road and once again suggesting that something be done to it. I know Tom has tried several times. Mr. Evans seems to be quite slow getting out there for some reason. And we had an incident, I believe, with tires up there. And I would think if the road was better maintained, it might, you know, deter people from doing things like that up in there, maybe.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. And on Province Lake Road on the weekends, there was increased traffic coming, I think, from people camping at Danforth Bay and probably up in Conway.
Yep.
Compared, take that with the people going to the transfer station. Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, people have figured out 153. You can stay off 16. So, all right. Anybody else? Yes.
Somebody else speak?
I apologize, I didn't hear you.
Cindy Espy,
Thank you.
on the subject of the ticks and the growth at the transfer station. Why is it okay for JP Pest to come in and spray? Wouldn't it be less expensive to have, maybe just get a bottle of some organic weed killer and spray it ourselves?
So two things. One is the ticks and one is the vine on the cap.
Right.
The area where they're going to spray for the ticks, not an issue whatsoever in spraying. I prefer to have it done from out. This is one of these scenarios where if I was doing it myself, I'd do it different, but because I'm dealing for 1,500 people, I got to think differently on it. And part of that is making sure that properly licensed people are putting down the pesticide. And if there's a liability issue that subsequently comes from that, that's part of their contract. If we spray it and something comes up, we own it. And that's not in the best interest of the majority in town. The vine part of it, I agree with Lenny. We gotta solve that one because it's going out of control down there. But we need to figure out what to do first. And it's gonna take a little bit more homework. Something's gonna be done. We just need more homework. Anything else, folks? Anybody else?
Can we just comment on that?
Sure.
On your comment? Where they're gonna spray for the ticks. I mean, right behind the glass container, there's a low spot right there. It's considered wetlands. There's wetland plants growing in it. And that's not even 20 feet away from where they're gonna be spraying.
Then based on that, let me get the, whatever they're gonna use for their spray. And we'll do the same thing we just did for the other one. We'll check and find out the environmental issue with it.
I mean,
They're not spraying in an environmental area with something that's toxic because they know in a wetland area, because they know they're on the hook for it. So they're very careful about what they're putting down. So, but yeah, I'll ask that question this week. They haven't scheduled anything yet to come in. Linda.
Yeah, I'm gonna once again touch on the granite. I don't think
Linda?
Yes.
We've already talked about granite. We're not talking about granite anymore. That's what.
Even if I have a good idea for the granite?
When the granite comes back over to us,
yeah,
be more than happy to take that.
Could you at least let me say it now so that you could think about it because it concerns the town hall?
Yep, good.
Up where the steps were, the Effingham NH cleared several years ago, slopes downhill. When the granite comes back to us, would it be a possibility or something to think about? Not only with the board, but maybe with other people. It's just a thought that maybe the granite could be placed on the side. If you wanted to buy a piece of that granite, have it inscribed with your family name or in memory of someone, wouldn't that be
A good use, yes.
yeah, a good use for it?
See, we talked to Elf's Landscaping last summer and early fall, and they spent about 4 or 5 hours out there on the site to come up with, I'm gonna call it a landscape plan, but it's parking, it's landscape, it's drainage, it's everything. Part of what we ran into is we started into that, and we're gonna have to do more homework on it when we see it. Apparently the pin line from Jones' property.
That's the lady over here on the side?
Yep.
Yes.
Apparently one of the pins is about a foot away from the corner of the existing granite. So we're not going to be able to probably do any more coming down the hill because it's on their property.
What about on the other side?
We could reset. Well, part of the initial thought was to reset the whole granite area, add more granite, as you just said, and reset those steps in their entirety.
Well, I would think, I for one would buy a piece of granite and have it inscribed if it could set up there. Yep. I think that would go along with what we're doing up there.
Yep. And
it would be a good use for our granite.
Agreed. So I'm trying to figure out when we're going to get supposedly the copy of what they've pulled together. I asked them to give us a price that it would cost to generate the plan so we could do some fundraising for it to be able to pay for it. I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of the work might be done and then we may not be charged full price. But I'm literally waiting on it to arrive any day, and I want to share it with the town. So we've got a good year or more, or a couple of years before we have to decide what we're going to do. Because I think it's important to get everybody's feedback.
I'm hoping that people will give it some thought.
We'll add it into the discussion when we get that back, because what we're getting back is only a preliminary. We can add that to the whole discussion.
Okay. So we don't have a park, keep in mind. We don't have a place where we have anything like that. And even in the smallest towns that you go in New Hampshire, you see different things like that. My hometown has a beautiful place like that. We went to Pittsburgh the other week, it's a very small town, and they have the nicest little park and things like that that they put to use. So I would like something done useful with it.
That's why we've asked them to give us an idea for the entire plot, not just one little section of it. It looks like the parking lot area would change a little bit. It would expand into that berm banking to some degree. And we can reduce a lot of the pavement up near the building because of the drainage issues it creates. French drains will be looked at, which is a requirement under the architect report for the historic preservation. So there's a whole bunch of things, but I'm trying to get something back as a visual so we can begin to share it with everybody to collect all the feedback like you just did.
Okay.
So, anybody else with a public comment? Yes.
I just want to address what she was saying about parks. Diane Jarecki with the ECC, and I live on Nutter Road, and we do have the conservation areas. That's not a bad idea for like the Larry Levitt Preserve and the new one out on Pine River, that maybe we can put some of those granites too, if there's enough people that want them around the parking area. Just a thought, nothing official because my chair isn't here, but a thought to add to that.
We can look at the volume of granite we have, and we as townspeople can decide how we're going to use it. That'll work.
I was just saying, if we don't have an official park, we at least have the conservation area, so
right,
something like that too.
And we did just put Lenny was able to get some gravel dumped down in the Levitt Preserve area. And
it was actually a huge mountain. It took us 2 days to spread. Thank you. We were expecting a little mound of gravel and some iron rakes. We ended up having to go get wheelbarrows and everything, and I'm still recovering from that project. But
if you get into that scenario again, where we need to dump something like that, I think we can probably get some small tractors from around the area that would buckets that would help spread.
Yeah, we didn't know. We were expecting. Said she was expecting like this, and we came to this instead.
You had a full dump
with a little gravel. That 4 of us, it took us 2 days to spread.
You did a good job, because when I went by it, I went, "Wow, that came out really good."
My husband went to tramp down a little bit with the truck. We need to go try and do some more of that, because just doing it by shovel and rake, it didn't get as quite as nice as we would like it. But
good. Thank
have
you.
The money in our funds to go ahead and arrange for tractor equipment right then.
Well, we can. I'm thinking if we need to spread something with a tractor, we're going to figure out how to do it with volunteer stuff without having to pay for it.
That would be awesome. Actually, if somebody wouldn't mind doing a little better spreading, like back drag of it, if we can have somebody do that, it would be great, because it is really, really thick.
Yep.
So it's making it a little soft right now. That's why my husband took the truck over it. We were a little concerned people could get kind of stuck. Not everybody's got all-wheel drive.
We'll see if we can get somebody over to spread it a little bit more, tamp it down.
Thank you.
Rain will help compact it to get any.
Yeah, eventually.
Someday.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Lawrence.
I looked at the bridge, they're using rusted out sheet pile. Did the town prove that?
We approved the contract for them to do the install.
That's not the question. Yeah.
No, we approved the contract to do the install. I'm not individually approving every single step of what they do. That's why we hired people with experience in building bridges. That's it. I'm not going to go down and start approving individual pieces of sheet piling, Lawrence.
And the footing could be 3 feet below the bottom of the river.
I'm not an engineer. Don't know. I don't have an engineering degree. Do you have an engineering degree? Oh, okay, good. I just want to make sure because.
But you have a set of plan in the office.
We do.
Never looked at.
Don't need to. I have a project manager that is running with that, Lawrence. So let me help you understand what we've been doing for the last 3 years. Every single selectman doesn't have to become an expert on an individual item that the town is working on. We consciously divided up stuff that needed to be worked on. Mike was roads and bridges. He does roads and bridges. He's got more education in that than anybody else sitting here. You have built culverts and bridges and stuff like that. I get it. That's physically building it. I don't need a physical builder. We hired one. We do need somebody to do project management on that to make sure all of the related parties are doing what they're supposed to be doing. We have the engineers there. There's reports that are coming out every week with details. So the reports for this last week, I'm supposed to be getting today. When they are, as soon as we get them, we're putting them up so everybody can see what's been going on down there in detail with pictures. So there's no attempt to hide anything from anybody. We'll get the information out there.
Well, I brought it last week that they violated the conditions on the permit. Did anybody look at the permit?
The project manager is familiar with the permit. I do not, I don't know how I can make this more clear to you. I'm a manager and I can delegate to get the work done. It's my responsibility at the end of the day to make sure it gets done and done properly. It does not mean that I have to do the work. So I was telling Lenny the other day on the used oil thing, he can learn how to write grants if he wants, because he's got a window before that needs to be submitted, or he can rely on Mike, who's already done it and already knows the entire process. That means Lenny gets the credit as the selectman for making sure the job get done. Doesn't mean he's got to do it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to be reading and looking at everything in detail, particularly when I hire professionals to do the work.
Well, the professional that you hired isn't doing his job. If he let them violate everything that's on that permit, he's not doing his job.
And
that
I will,
guy should be sent down the road.
and I appreciate that. And I know you contacted DES, and I know they're doing some follow-up works. I don't know if they've contacted you, but they've contacted the engineers and the town. They are doing some work. My understanding is they may be doing a site visit. Okay, but it's based on what you have reported in there. And we'll take a look at it and see where we are. I'm comfortable where we are. I know you're not, but I am.
The other two comfortable?
I'm comfortable at this moment.
Thanks.
I know they didn't live up to what's on that permit. It's on the poll, so.
So we just
If they didn't, and it's picked up when they do their site visit based on the complaint you made to the state, it'll come out. I'm good. I'm good. I'm not fearful of it. I'm good. It's where we are at this point in time.
So in other words, the town doesn't care.
Town does care. The town has a process in place to make sure that the job gets done with oversight. And the engineering firm is providing the oversight. An objective third party, no town bias whatsoever in their review. If you were down there right now doing that, it would be a town bias, your opinion only. I don't want to have any of our citizens sucked into anything. That's why we hired the outside people to do that.
So my recourse is, if the selectman's not going to do anything, who do I go to?
You did. You went to the state. Exactly what we talked about 2 weeks ago. I told you, if you didn't like the answer I'm giving you, go to the state. You've done that. The state is looking into it. I don't know what more you want. The process is working the way the process was designed.
Has the DES called the town on that bridge? Did they talk to Platinum or did they talk to this?
They talked to me and they talked to HB engineers.
You talked to HEB?
Correct.
And they're gonna be talking to other people based on what Audrey told me. So it's not just 2 people, they're gonna be talking to more people.
It's a sloppy job.
I appreciate your opinion. You're 1 person or 2 people or 3 people. You're not 1,500 people. Thank you for your opinion. I respect your opinion. I'm just disagreeing with it, that's all. And that's my right as a democracy. Thank you. Yes, Cindy.
Are the plans available to the public?
They are. It all has to be available because it's a town contract. So anybody that wants to see it can come in and look at it. We don't have a capability to print the big 3 by 4 foot, but it's here. You can come in and take a look. So, Linda?
Yes, and I would encourage anyone, if they're interested in this, to go up and look on the pole and see the 7 things, I believe. I'm not sure on the number.
Yep.
You'll understand that because, you know, you told me 13, there was 9.
I understand. I'm not going to hold you the number.
So just go up there and read what was supposed to happen. Because I'm pretty sure the night that you were at Mr. Foley, you see, I assume dirty water going down through there.
I saw silt fences slowing everything down. And with a half an hour of that being changed, the water was clear. So I know Lawrence was downstream taking some pictures. I got that. I had no problem with that. But if you think you're going to do any kind of work and not have silt a little bit, ain't going to happen. So even if we pumped it out and pushed it down, it's still going to have stirred up the water beyond where it was.
Yeah, but the things that are on the pole were things that are supposed to be done.
And I am quite sure.
Very disappointing that they weren't done.
And I'm quite sure when DES comes out, they're going to take a look at everything. They have access to all of the reports from HEB on the entire scenario. So all the information you've raised, they've got access to look at the reports to basically look into it.
And I just like to say, when I notified the authorities, it was our local authority, and it was not state police. So that's it.
Good. Anybody else? All right. Oh, David.
Just like to say that.
David, your name and address, please.
Dave Garstone, 9 Wonder Road.
Thank you.
It's been my experience. I've done a lot of construction work, building houses, landscaping, that kind of thing.
Excuse
Engineers
me.
have.
Excuse me. You need to address the chair, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Engineers have the definitive word on these things. So when you're looking at checking out projects, the engineers are the ones that are going to be the first to say this isn't done right, if something isn't done right. So taking their word is pretty good advice on this. It's a lot better than going with even someone like me who's experienced in the thing. I don't know what they do.
I think we know that engineers usually are right on the job, making sure that you have sediment ponds and whatever. But I would think that things that are written on that pole that are approved by the state should have been done. So it's there for all to see, you know.
All right, folks, that's end of public comment for today. We now have an update from Mr. Cahalan as the health officer and the volunteers. We're dealing with a number of our roads and the information we've asked him to be involved with. Mike?
It's the protocol. Sit here.
Yeah, you can sit on the corner. You don't need to sit here just facing.
All right. Yeah. A checklist that Audrey provided for the board as an update. It just goes on to a number of projects here, so I'll address those. I think there's about 9 of them on this list. So Snow Road Bridge replacement, as as timeline status, it's essentially on target with the 60 days. Paving coordination and such should take place mid-July. They should have the west side pile caps done by the end of this week. That should be poured. And then they'll go in next week to the construction phase of all the prefabricated parts to assemble a bridge. I'm told that that process should go rather quickly. So with that, the bridge should be, open mid-July as long as the paving lines up.
So Mike, along the same line, I know we lost 4, 5, 6 days driving piles on the transfer station side.
Yeah.
Because they could not get the depth that they wanted to. My understanding is the engineering firm had them continue trying to drive those piles, even though they wouldn't go any deeper than less than 20 feet.
Right, and I guess the engineering is one thing we probably could touch on here, is that the permit was issued to the town. That's up there, but it's the obligation of the bridge contractor and their engineers to follow that. Our folks are there overseeing it, and they're saying, what is the letter of the law, follow the permit, just that the town's done its part to say, this is what you're supposed to follow. So they're doing that. I won't address any particulars as to whether the permit is actually being followed or not, because there's a lot of references to technical data and materials to supplement or have other options available for best management practices. That's the engineers, that's not me. And we've got 2 sets of engineers on here, one for the contractor and one for the town. The town side, that's our liability aspect of it. The contractor, he has his professionals there to keep him out of trouble. So with that, I've also spoken with the Department of Environmental Services. And my understanding is they may or may not come out. The reports have all been made available to the DES. They're also online. It's very transparent. We self-report when there's an issue like this. So for that one breach, I don't know if that was self-reported or what generated was Mr. Edwards' concern or report by any of the engineering team. So. But I did talk to the representative from pollution control at DES. Our engineers say that they think that 80% of the sediment was caught by the turbidity curtain. And as David pointed out, you are not going to work in the water without some sediment transferring. So with that, DES is interested in a review on process and if better controls should be used, whether they were appropriate in this case or not. That's for all those, the state agency to work out with the engineers and decide. So as far as any permit violations, I'm sure we'll hear more about that from the appropriate agencies and authorities. So I won't go into that. But the construction portion for the east side, GM2 is the engineering firm for HEB, for Hanson, I'm sorry, for Hanson Bridge. And when those piers bottomed out fairly quickly, they insisted they keep trying to pile drive those down to make sure that they're going to be stable. So they ran into ledge, rock, or some other various, something down there that was immovable, and they couldn't drive the piles through them. They actually brought in a much larger hammer that it's an independently run off a generator, bigger contraption to try and drive them. Bent and twisted one of the tops so that it's just not going down any further. It's not structurally, it's not an issue, it's being cosmetic. One pile on the west side was slightly askew. So they expanded the pile cap from 2 feet to 30 inches to provide coverage. That was an engineering design change, but it's totally acceptable. When that one H pile went down, it must have been pushing on something that was angled. And when it started to curve off, they stopped. So that's all fine. There's no issue with that. Again, the construction's going good. We should have the bridge done pretty soon. And I don't think there's much more to put into that conversation. I read some aspects of it here already.
I get a question. Mike.
Sure.
They didn't work at the end of last week there. Why was that?
They didn't work on Friday. I think it was more travel related with the timing through coming through Laconia Bike Week and such. The senior man for the bridge project had to go to New York for some other business related thing. I think, you know, the guys just scheduled a vacation day there to avoid that. But other than that, the piles went good on the east side. Like I said, they're all in. I think that we have one left to drive, and those will be the forms will be coming in for the concrete pile cap, and the sheet piles will be driven and cut and placed same as the other side.
And I did actually talk to the engineering firm. They were down there Wednesday and Thursday while the guys were there.
Yeah, and our guys from HEB has been pretty much a constant there. And that again is probably a little overkill in a sense, but when situations arise, such as we had, you know, a breach, it wasn't huge, it was one culvert, and the clarity of the water restored very quickly. Things are cleared up and down as far as I could tell. So I think things are going to be fine. But again, the arbitrators of that will be the Department of Environmental Services. And again, they have been in touch with all parties, including myself. So, any other? No, okay. Pine River Road emergency permit. Pine River Road, it says emergency permit. Well, that was previously, I guess, the actual
culvert repair at this point.
Yeah, well, this is actually the 3 culverts that are overflow culverts that need to go in. I guess there was kind of a scheduling hiccup between the office and the contractor, so that's moved out to the beginning of the 2nd week of July. They hope to be in here. It could always be delays because they're going from one project to another. So if you get done on time.
And we did the ad today, so it's going out up to Conway, and we'll put it up on the website.
Great. That emergency repair was done. What we're in is the actual final permanent repair. So there's 3 overflow culverts that are designed for that. I could argue, as I'm sure others would, that it seems excessive, but that's not up to us or the engineering firm. That's a requirement of the Department of Environmental Services and their engineering team. So we have the culverts in-house, and those will be installed. It'll be paved over once the town has a small paving project coming, as well as the bridge on Snow Road will have some paving. So if we get lucky, we can tie a few of these things together and get the paving done in one shot. Yeah. So with that, it's on target really to be completed on time. Just that we didn't have a definitive date anyway, so we were shooting for the end of June, and here we are, you know, hitting July.
Once that's in, you've just got some additional paperwork around the permit to let the state know that it's done. Here are the pictures, the whole bit.
Right, there'll be a little completion report, following up notification really for them. It's up to them to decide just how much. What they would like to see, photos, or just say it's completed, or, you know, once it's paved over, send them photos. Every one of these things is a little different. And depending on the person who's monitoring that particular project, you could get asked for different things because different personalities like to see different things, different information. Bailey Road culvert replacement, I guess that's a twofold item. That one is actually at the point of an emergency permit, which we received. We found the degradation on those culverts is really accelerated, and we had a contractor going down trying to free up access to the culvert because some of the material culvert. That was completed to some degree. Kevin Downs was down there directing it, and I know it's not perfect, and it's going to need to do some more with that. But the water level is still fairly high. I think there's some beaver activity that is fairly close to the culvert location. So
south of the bridge. or downriver of the bridge?
Right, just downriver from the culverts to in the South River. With that, the folks who've generally been taking the lead on moving beavers in that area is the Province Lake Association. So I've been working with those folks over there, and they've already scheduled Mr. Stevens, who we use as well for beaver control, to come in and see if he can't remove the beavers is one part, but also see if you could do something with the hut that's likely built there to see removal, as well as our contractor was sending out Mr. Downs to see if there was any approach avenues to any hut, so we can get a mini excavator potentially out there and help pull that out. So that's being coordinated. The big hurdle there is getting the water level down. Another thing is dewatering. Any activity in there is going to be the heavy lift. So if we can get the water level down 2 feet, that would be great. If we could get enough flow through one culvert to compensate for what normally goes through the both of them, that would be ideal. So we can sleeve both of these culverts one at a time. And there again, it was suggested by HEB engineers that since Mr. Hanson's in town, there's a potential he has the capability to provide a dewatering service and give us basically a 12-foot window to operate in, 10-foot, 12-foot to get the culvert pieces in. So,
so there's a suspicion, very much like all the culverts we took out of Snow Road that were over half full of beaver debris. We suspect there's beaver debris in both the culverts that are there at Bailey Road.
Beaver debris would not be unlikely, and sediment would be very likely. Okay. So getting a dry, workable area so that we can have some actual access is primary to be able to do that, because we're not excavating culverts out. The other thing is a concern is once we get in there, has the culverts gone to the point where the centers are dropping? So we still have the great unknown. If we can sleeve a culvert and run it through there, that'll be an acceptable patch until we can get to hopefully next year, fall, and do the complete replacement, which I'll talk a little to that. As Lenny, you were here for the only one you've been exposed to presentation from CMA engineers, which is the follow-up on the DES grant that we got to explore this avenue. With that, they're targeting the project to be about $383,000 with inflation. And that is for a 12-foot concrete culvert. CMA went through various options for culverts, and the aluminum one was discussed as well. And the one that's been selected as most cost-effective, best longevity, all of it, price points, the whole bit, it's just is this 12-foot concrete culvert. So it's aesthetically pretty pleasing. It was the presentation laid it all out what we could expect. We put together $50,000 at town meeting, most of it coming from the unassigned fund balance towards this project. 319 grant is one of the grants I'm pursuing. There's a number of grants, but 319 is the implementation grant at 40%. It's hinged largely on water quality benefits. The phosphorus loading is wouldn't really be reduced as we had hoped by the installation of this culvert. So it makes our grant application a little less competitive, but you don't know how many people are going to compete. You could get it by default because not that many people put in. So we are going forward with the Department of Environmental Services group on this to submit a 319 grant. There is some discussion about the benefits of the shoreline protection of trying to reestablish the shoreline down Bailey Road heading to the east from the culvert, because we're getting points where the road is probably going to get undermined at some point. So koi logs and such are looked at to be able to build up the shoreline and establish more of a beach, protect the road. The overall price tag for that was about $150,000, but it's the idea of getting a grant. So right now, again, with the Province Lake Association, Laurie Dunn over there is the president at this point. I've just tentatively asked her to discuss this with property owners and see if there's any interest. Would people be in favor of reestablishing the shoreline, or maybe they wouldn't want any intervention? So some cooperation is the other problem. If not everybody wants to cooperate on the project, it could kind of negate the realities of attempting it. But I'm focusing on straight grant for 319, focusing only on the culvert. There's a whole list of things in the playbook that says this is what the criteria for. So water quality is the big one. There are others that we should be competitive in. And we are exploring with Don Crutchmeyer's group, who was part of the CMA group, on any benefits that we can find from water quality. He had a small portion of this project, and he can expand a little on that for us to see if we can get something in the report. And Sally's still with DES.
Mike, how does the grant actually work? So is it like a 60-40 or a 50-50 or? It
would be a 60-40 or 40% of the project. So what we would do is we would file that by September 17th this year. And then it goes into a review process with pre-application stuff. And if it gets through the hurdles there, then it would become a warrant article item, just as we did before on the first grant for this, to some levels. Different structure, but same concept. And then next year you have your actual funding theoretically. So if we come out of town meeting assigning X amount of money, if we have, if it looks like we've got the grant, you'll be able to form your warrant article up to get the money that you need for this, which is a potential from the review I've had of our financials that probably some share would come from taxation, but the greater majority, or at least at 50% of it, would probably come from unassigned fund balance. Because that still seems to be fairly healthy. So the project is in reach, and that's where we'd be looking to go on that. The other thing is I've been in contact with NHMA to kind of get a better understanding of ARPA money, which is the American Relief Act, whatever this.
We're actually going to sit through that presentation right at the end of this meeting.
Well, in my discussions with Becky Benvenuti over there, who does finance, her and Margaret Burns are taking the lead on this stuff for NHMA. Stormwater management is a qualifier for the Bailey Road culvert. That's how we got money in the first place. ARPA funds look like they would be, we could access that for this supposedly. So I have some other folks I'm going to need to reach out to on the state side to verify that the ARPA funds could target this project. I think it will. And at that point, we have about $155,000 in the ARPA fund that could be applied to this. That's our portion, 77,000 for the first half change.
That's 50-50, yeah, this year, next year.
Right, which the timeline works. So if you had $150,000 with the 50 you've got, basically call it $400,000 to be 100 and 100 unassigned taxation, you can make this happen. You don't have a big choice here because people live on the other side. There's a lot of summer cottages. There's a tax base that if they couldn't reach their properties, probably the abatements would be flying. So that's a pretty big concern.
If I remember correctly in the meeting the other day, the actual construction work, they're not intending to shut the lanes down so people can get access to the houses on the other side.
Right. The actual structure that was targeted is actually smaller in width, longer in length from a culvert standpoint versus the smaller culverts. The width would be about 6 feet less, but it would allow us to do one lane at a time to the installation to keep that open. Another big thing with the Bailey Road culvert, which ties into the Snow Road Bridge, is Snow Road Bridge, when it was put in, you know, that was a design the state was pushing. So it's not a fault there, but it overtopped on occasion and it doesn't have the capacity to handle heavy rain events, per se. You can experience flooding without beaver problems and such. So in the analysis of Bailey Road, we found that the Snow Road downstream was going to be a big problem because the hydraulic flow, you have a capacity for 25.2 feet of area through the culverts now. When you go to this 12-footer with 5 feet of open space, it's 60 feet. So you're going to go up like 1.4% in actual, you know, more than double, 140% greater flow capacity. That gets downstream on a big event. That is going to flood out snow road bridge as it was. With the new bridge, we're going to be fine. So we're solving two problems with the new installation of this bridge, because Bailey Road is we're being forced to a bigger structure. It's not a choice or a preference. That's what DES said. We'll accept this. So the two tied together, those projects. And dewatering on Bailey Road is the bigger concern. Materials for the temporary have been purchased. To some degree, we might find out we might need more lengths when we get in there. And I've established a couple of suppliers that can help us out. The lag time is the only thing that's a problem with steel culverts these days. You tend to be about 4 weeks. So the more we can get in there and to discover, and I don't know if that means getting in the water, I'm thinking, and, we get it down a little, and maybe we can get in there and see a little more. So unless there's questions on Bailey Road, any part of that. Transfer station, used oil, that project is kind of, it should be moving along a little further, faster, I think. There was some blockage of water coming through those pipes that dropped down as a protective barrier. So Kevin was supposed to get out there. I don't know that he has, to put some, to fix those so they don't leak. And then the surface underneath, we have the sealer that was supposed to be applied, and there was going to be some touch-up work on the concrete, I understand. And then there's the roll-up door, which the roll-up door doesn't keep you from actually establishing the program. There were some containers that you could use for the match, which is a bigger container. And then there was a set of 4 drum containers we were looking at with these two, they fit into these other containers. They're for an overflow. They're pretty reasonably priced, but with those containers all purchased, I think you probably hit your match point. So that should be a pretty quick, easy to get through. And I know I sent forward all the paperwork from what was initially put together, but as these things go for a 3-year plan, there'll be tweaks and things you want to change and update. But if you need anything, let me know.
I did the application yesterday. Just going to discuss what we're going to buy.
Oh, okay.
For,
I think Tom and Chuck, you had something, and he had the dogs.
Lenny now has copies of all that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, again, if you have any questions or anything, just let me know after that.
I know, just touching on those, the 2 holes at the top.
Yes.
They haven't been done until the weekend.
Yeah,
so I can't put the sealer down till
I think you probably need to light a fire under Kevin, because I know he has a lot of other projects going, but I think he's also looking for some involvement from a decision standpoint, hydraulic cement, but is everybody on board with what the patch job for those 2 holes is? Part of it was we were going to support underneath it, put hydraulic cement in it, and fill it up fairly good, and put those pipes right into it, and maybe with the sort of a kind of a gasket effect underneath the metal to the concrete that can be determined. But it's pretty straightforward. It's just do it. So
I don't even think we need that bumper post anymore.
We don't. One of the suggestions was keeping it there so that nobody would back into that building as the roof comes down there, but it's not. I mean, do whatever. It's Is it really necessary or not?
Yeah, I'm going to take it out.
So following up with Kevin is probably on your plate, I guess. Calcium chloride, we got lucky because we were able to get that all in nonstop once we started. So all the roads have been done, and it was kind of dry when it went down, but we got hit with some rain right after that wasn't, flood proportional rain. So it seems like it's settling in pretty good. That's a limited budget, so you hope to get you as far as you can before you start hitting the roads. I would suggest is once you get some potholes in, you got to realize where you live, ride it out, and then once you start saying, okay, this is getting to a point, you do some spot rating. Kevin's pretty good at taking care of that. But that's pretty much it on that item. The crack sealing, we typically have scheduled that in by now, and Townhouse Road is again still breaking apart, so that's a focus point I think you'd want to stay with. Other roads to watch in the past have been High Watch, because you don't have the money really to fix that, and the top portion was never paved. It wasn't it was paved, but it wasn't reconstructed to any level. And there's some concerns on that road. You might want to take a ride out and see what you think, but that's a focus point. The other place to check is Bailey Road, which is really holding up well. That was built in 2010. It's probably the best constructed road in town. And I, surprisingly enough, I've been focused on the culvert down there, so I haven't been looking for cracks in the road. So far, we have not had to really do anything. You don't have a lot of other roads that are really worth spending money on crack sealing on this time, but that's for the board. If you see anything around town on the asphalt roads, you probably want to call that in. We've been using RCH, and I'm sure you have contact information for that. Route 153 and Huntress Bridge Road, you know, without funding, that's not going to go anywhere for that intersection anytime soon. But when you bring in your paving contractor comes in, I would suggest having them grind and grade and just pave probably from 153 to just the other side of Parsons Field Road, you know, and just call it good, because that transition is horrible. It's got potholes. There's nothing, you'll never be able to keep up with it. So get it paved if you can. I don't think it'd be a ton of money. You'd probably go about 20 feet wide. They didn't measure it by about 40 feet long. Well, you have a company in town, that's probably another option for you. I did speak with C.R. Wilkie over at State just this morning. He oversees municipal bridges in the state of New Hampshire. And, you know, as we suspected that, you know, Bridge 8 is still struggling, but they're not taking new applications. That's a back burner item. The moment that you take applications again, Huntress Bridge Road is something that needs to be submitted, because that bridge is 136 feet long and the town could not afford.
Do we need to have the engineering report done before we do that submission?
You wouldn't need a report. You get that from the state anyway, but you just, it's a very cursory form that gets filled out, at least in the past, with some numbers, and it's kind of just, you put some numbers on a page that are very pretty speculative, and you file that in, and you let the state know that you're making provisions to make a match for your 20% should you get there. But again, that one's way down the road, and it's just something to keep on your list. Fire Station 2 parking lot paving. I had some professional consulting in there and went through, and I have something put together, but there again, trying to move forward without funding from federal, you know, infrastructure. It's not in the price range for the town at this point. So not a lot to give you on that. Health officer activity, you know, yeah, there's things going on. There's new updates to the training requirements, and some changes in regulatory for the RSAs. So tomorrow I have an online training meeting, DHHS, on that. And again, the training requirements are being added to. So more training and participation, needing to put together some file forms for the basic inspections and foster care stuff. So there's follow-up to be gathered to get the kind of forms that we should be using.
And we decided as a board that we needed to update our existing 2002 health ordinance, which is predominantly around septic systems.
It's
so,
totally around septic.
Yeah, we need it. And unfortunately, there's no copy of it exists other than what's on the website. So we're going to retype it and be able to edit it and see what's changed in 20 years.
I forgot, Tom, you wanted some stuff from health officer manuals and that. I forgot to bring it with me. There are some contact towns that have some decent stuff put together for health ordinance, and that was provided to me by NHMA suggestions. So I can give you what I have on that. Once you're in that direction, you can certainly expand that area, because they didn't give me a ton of towns. But every town's different. You can't take a North Conway ordinance and fit it to Effingham.
No, and I did a couple hours of search on the internet, and I couldn't find anything other than Perlin that it comes even close to what we got. It's slimmed down as we got it.
Well, and that's the other thing. What do you want to capture? Because you know, there are some situations in town that we are seeing that, I don't know. Yeah, that's a bigger discussion. Right?
And I was trying to reach out to Frank Evans, who's the health officer up here in Freedom, and a few other towns up there. We actually had him in one time.
Yep.
So he'll come in and speak with us on it.
Yep. Give them a copy of what we've got.
So, yeah, the other operating stuff was broadband, which I'm sure you're aware of, Chuck. Infrastructure, which is focused on stormwater. And there's a percentage ratio that they give you for your operating budget, how that gets put together. Sounds like you guys are gonna get all that. I did bring in plenty of copies for myself for permitting, but I'm not getting into the permitting. I have them and I'm aware of what's in them. So from that point, I don't really think I have much more for you guys on the subject matter that was asked. Unless I missed something, which I don't know, see if I can find what I have. I'll answer any questions.
I'm good.
Any questions?
No.
Mom, you said you're good.
Yeah, one question. You have trouble getting hold of that Dean from DES?
Dean Robinson is a little bit elusive. Yeah. There's other people in his office too. That
I finally got a hold of him yesterday.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's been the hardest one to nail down. So there is another gal in the office that is part of that group, and she has chased him down for me.
Can you send that information, Elaine?
Yeah, identify which one of these folks is in the oil grant program, and I'll send it. I'll give it to you. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for you today. Okay. Wait a minute, what is this? Yeah, I know I had another little bit of something put together. If there's anything relevant, so excuse me for 1 second here. Another thing is to go out and look at the next phase of the Green Mountain culverts. There's also an overlap with the Conservation Commission on their list. Most of the next 10 items, a lot of them have been done or will be completed in this go around. So I would say 7 or 8 out of the 10 on their list, the second list that they produce, should be taken care of when we go out and take a peek at those. And I was just going to suggest that if you were going to place your road signs for any road, I think Hudcross Bridge Road for the no-through trucking would probably preserve some of that.
Tractor trailer come down that hill yesterday. He never even slowed down and he hit that bump and he kept right on flying. So glad nobody was coming out.
The road is really probably not dealing with heavy loads well because it's a cord road. And it probably needs all that grading more often. If you cut that traffic down, that might be helpful. But that's the one I would suggest. And the only other thing was the delineators we had bought. Channel post and delineators so that any of the culverts on our, at least our asphalt roads that have been completed, if you could start applying those, putting them in on one side or the other, pick a side, put one delineator post in at the culvert just to denote it. So you go back, you know where you're, for inspection, cleanouts, what have you. But that was something that we planned for, but we never got there because, it's just one more job for a limited crew and limited money. But just figured you might want to realize that that's still out there.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
You're on the docket monthly.
Oh, so I've been told.
The week of this same week each month.
Okay. See what I can do.
Good. Thank you, Mike.
Can you send that to us electronically?
The document?
Yes, please.
I didn't save it. I just took your document and edited and produced it here. So you could certainly scan it in and everything. I didn't feel the need to save that one.
In the future.
I didn't think it was that much of a document.
So you can just take that and we can scan it up. Okay. Do we have any reason for 91?
I don't.
Good.
And so this is weird for something today.
All right. You do. Go. Folks. Linda.
In regards to the Stafford Treatment Center, the month of May, there were 7 calls there. Out
Out
of
of
100,
183?
7 for the treatment center. So
Okay.
far to date, this month, there's been 5.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Chief. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. I have a thing for you, Rob.
Okay.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you.